All right. Hello and welcome to the Starseed Kitchen podcast. I'm your host, Chef Whitney Aronoff, and today I'm chatting with James McCrae. James, did I say that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, properly representing your Irish last name. So James McCrae is an author, poet, creative guide, and meme artist based in Austin, Texas. In his writings and art, he applies the principles of mindfulness and Eastern philosophy to modern life with humor and candor. James is the author of two books. One is Shit Your Ego Says by Hay House, released in 2017. And most recently, his new book, How to Laugh in Ironic Amusement During Your Existential Crisis, a book of poetry and memes about leaving your comfort zone to embrace the unknown. On his popular Instagram page, Words Are Vibrations, James shares daily memes, poems, and illustrations that delight and inspire his audience. He also hosts a podcast, Homesick Alien Club, that explores the intersections of creativity, consciousness, and culture. Well, hello, James.
Hey, what's up, Whitney? Thank you so much for that intro. And thanks for having me onto the Starseed Kitchen podcast.
No, I'm so excited to have you here. And it's so interesting in this day and age. When you follow people on Instagram, you start to feel like you already know them, even though you've never shared a conversation with them. And I'm sure that you get that a lot since you're someone that shares their personal thoughts and feelings and memes all the time.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, online, you really do start a relationship with people. And I have got close friends online that I've never met in real life
Yeah.
that we just, you follow someone long enough and you start to see their daily thoughts and, ideas. And it's weird because it's not the same as real life, but there is something that's still intimate about it, and there's still real connections that can be made. So it's pretty funny and strange, the world we're living in, but I think it's pretty fun when you can like have relationships all around the world,
Yes.
that you kind of maintain, kind of microdose relationships through looking at people's social media content on a daily basis. And over time, you really do start to kind of, you know, get close to people.
Yeah, well, it's just nice that we have multiple ways to connect with people now when it's maybe a little bit more difficult to travel or people are more busy. And so it's harder to find time to connect. There are still ways to connect with despite any distance.
Absolutely.
So tell me briefly about your background. How did you get started as a writer and an author? And then how did you get into creating memes?
Yeah. So, I've really just been a creative person my whole life. I kind of think that most kids are creative. And then
Mhm.
at a certain point, they get distracted by the world and they kind of lose their, you know, uh, just inherent creativity and imagination. But so I've really just been a creative my whole life. I grew up in a very small town in Minnesota.
Mhm.
And what was good about that is that it really gave me a lot of space, just to let my imagination run wild. It was just kind of like I was left to my own devices and would go on adventures in the forest and just kind of like be free to explore, be free to play, be free to imagine. And that just gave me a really strong foundation when it came to creativity.
Yeah.
And sometimes that meant drawing, sometimes that meant writing. I really started writing poetry pretty like regularly around the age of like 13, 14.
Yeah.
And that got me, deep into writing. And then I started drawing more and I eventually started painting more. So I was kind of like always juggling writing and visual arts. And I wanted to write, but I wanted to paint, and I was always kind of doing both. And I eventually went to art school for graphic design, and worked professionally as
Ah,
a graphic designer. So I learned all the tricks of making art in the digital age.
got it.
Learned
Yeah.
Photoshop, Illustrator, all of those things.
The basic life skills of, 2021, 2022.
Exactly. Yeah, I get familiar with computers for sure. And but even when I was working professionally as a graphic designer, I always I even then had like a blog where I could keep up my writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would write, at the time it was more, I was writing a blog about like the philosophy of design and branding and marketing and things like that, because that's the world that I lived in. So I was kind of writing my philosophical musings around design and branding. And then I kept writing that blog, and it kept I really just found myself more inspired around writing again. So I remember I ended up like I would compile different blog posts and then start releasing ebooks. And
Ah,
so like I was just kind of taking baby steps towards
yes.
being an author by blogging and then making ebooks, and then one thing leads to another. And then before you know it, I'm writing my first book, which was Shit Your Ego Says, which was published by Hay House. And a lot of that was really inspired by leaving Minnesota to move to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And all the, first of all the ego that's in New York City, but also just kind of getting thrown out of your comfort zone and having to jump into a place that's completely unfamiliar. And learning the ropes during times of transition and change, and the great unknown. So I've always been writing, I've always been doing art, and it was really not until this past year, 2020, when the pandemic started,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I kind of returned to writing poetry and making memes. And I think the reason that is because the world turned upside down pretty quickly and pretty severely.
Yes.
And I found the world to be such a strange place that only communication like poetry or memes could articulate what was happening. Because you could write a lecture, you could write an essay about something, and it's kind of like a one-sided thing where you're kind of giving your opinion and defending your opinion. And with poetry and with memes, you can really, there's more nuance to just kind of express the absurdity of existence
Yeah, you can
without,
express a feeling and an emotion or an
you can use,
experience.
yeah, totally. And also just the nuance of life, because that's one thing that happened during the pandemic, is like everyone quickly took a side. Like you're either you either turned into a big conspiracy theorist, or you turned into a someone who was terrified of the virus and was always wearing a mask, or whatever it was. And with poetry and memes, I could kind of leave space for it all and kind of make fun of the absurdity of it all without taking a side or being too self-righteous about my opinion, because I just got really fed up with everyone's big strong opinions, and everyone thought they knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And here I am being like, well, none of us really know. Like, it made me realize how 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 little understanding we truly have of the nature of reality. And reality is far more complex and like deep and expansive than we can ever imagine. So being too opinionated or being too dogmatic about your own beliefs, to me, is just not the way to go. So it really gave me a chance to express nuance and feelings. And so yeah, that's kind of why I started making memes. And that's really, even though I was already a published author, when I started making memes is when I started my popularity online started to really skyrocket, because it turns out that people really liked memes, they're very relatable. People share them. You
Mm-hmm.
can kind of just, you can communicate something with a meme that you can't communicate in any other way, because there's something about the visual component and the written component, and combining those together, that just creates something that's a new art form.
Yeah, it's so interesting how it creates community online and in real life, and how you'll be following someone and it's like your own little secret and it's something that brings you joy. And then you'll start noticing friends or acquaintances that you're connected to on social media repost those same memes. And it creates a stronger bond between the two people because now you have the same sense of humor or the same outlook on an experience. Like, did you think that when you started to create memes that you would be creating community in a way for people to connect? I mean, it's so interesting.
Yeah, not that wasn't my plan for sure, but you're totally right. I mean, there's even, I might find memes that I find funny, and then I'll send different people different memes depending on what our relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I know this person will appreciate this one. I know this
Mm-hmm.
person will appreciate this one. So it's just a way to kind of make a connection with someone, based on a shared point of view around some particular topic.
Yeah, and it really brings back the concept of laughter is the best medicine. It's so nice when you can share a good laugh with someone, whether you're in person with them or from a distance, all over someone's creativity and that they've put together into a meme. It's just
Yeah.
a really unique experience. How do you create your memes? Do you use Canva? Do you use Photoshop? Like what system are you using to create them?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, just to circle back to your last question too,
Yeah.
and complete that thought. So a lot of memes that you'll see are, there are a lot more spiritual memes now, but at first, um, the memes that were going around were really just more kind of like, they weren't deep in terms of the like the idea behind them. A lot of memes are just kind of silly.
Hmm.
And so I had already had a history of writing on spiritual topics, right? Like I've been published through Hay House, which is like a spiritual
Hmm.
publisher. And I was already kind of, you know, I was already familiar with writing on spiritual topics. So it was really like applying a mindset of spirituality to the format of the meme, where a meme in the past might have had the same image, but it would have had some like silly caption that was funny, but it wasn't hinting at like a deeper meaning. So really what I tried to do was take that same format of a meme, but then apply some kind of a spiritual insight to it. So that's back to like what creates community. That's kind of, I think, what did it was like people already were online sharing memes. So when they started seeing memes that were of a spiritual nature, it really clicked for at least like people that are in,
Yeah.
quote unquote spiritual communities.
Yes. And I think most people at this time now are looking for things that are a little bit deeper and they're trying to better understand their true purpose or what makes them happy or the path that they want to be going on. And so the timing is just so spot on.
Yeah,
You were,
spirit. I
you were
mean,
guided very well.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. Like this spirituality has gone mainstream. I mean, I guess it's always been mainstream, like to a certain degree, but it seems like I don't meet many people these days that aren't spiritual in some sense.
Yeah.
Because I think we've kind of gone through a transition where they've kind of broken out of the, dogmatic religions, and then even like if they went through like an atheist phase, that wasn't very fulfilling, and then maybe they saw some spiritual friends that they had that were more happy, and they're just like, well, what is this person doing that I'm not doing? And it really created a pretty big ripple effect where most people have, some kind of interest in higher consciousness, which is great.
Yeah, whether they're looking at it that way or they're just looking to improve themselves and their
Yeah.
life, Hopefully it just has them thinking outside of their own consciousness or their own being. And again, it's just that ripple effect. I hope that will slowly just start to make the world a better place. We hope.
Totally. So how do I make memes? There are a few different ways. It could go it could go a couple ways. Like it either starts with an image or it starts with an idea.
Mhm.
So I might come across an image that I like, and that just to do that, to be on top of the new meme like formats, you just have to spend a lot of time on the internet.
Yeah.
And not just Instagram. Like I think Instagram's usually like the third platform to get
Mhm.
memes. Like when I see a meme go viral on Instagram, I've already seen it go viral on Twitter
Interesting.
for sure. And there's a good chance before it went viral on Twitter, it went viral on Reddit or something similar to that.
Okay.
So there's kind of like there's layers of the internet, and like the memes usually start in like these less popular places that have more of a niche user base. So a lot of the memes will kind of like start to get spread around on Reddit. I'm not really a Reddit user myself, but then they usually jump over to Twitter, and then I'll see a meme kind of start to spread on Twitter, and then it'll blow up on Instagram. That's usually how I see it go.
Okay.
So you kind of have to spend a lot of time online to find the right images.
Yeah.
And then I just like look at an image and I just try to think of what I can add, what I can add to the conversation from
Yeah.
my own perspective. You know, that's both deep and funny. It kind of has to be both deep and funny for it to really click. And I might use any type of tool. Sometimes I use Photoshop because again, I have that graphic design training,
Yeah. You're so lucky.
which helps a lot because memes don't require a lot of design work, um, but they require some. So you know, you can make more polished. But when I say polished, the thing with memes is they're usually not very polished design. Like sometimes they are, but like sometimes I might intentionally make the text in my meme blurry, like on purpose, because there's something about the meme format that it being a little bit a little bit weird looking is part of the charm sometimes. So I might add a little bit of like a graininess, or I might add I might pixelate the image a little bit, or make the text a little bit blurry, because that's just like there's something about the weird internet design that sometimes works better than having something that's overly polished.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll either use Photoshop, or there's a few apps that I use in my phone as well.
Okay.
And it's really just whatever the best way to add text to an image is for the most part.
Mm.
But then I might also like have an idea first, and I'm like, oh, that's a funny idea. I just need to find an image to fit this idea. And then I might go searching for an image. And I've got so many images saved on my iPhone
Yeah.
that
I'm sure.
I can just search through my phone, or like I'm like, oh, okay, I need an image that looks surprised to fit this caption that I have. And then you can like just search online for like, you know, surprised meme or something like that, and then you can try to find the right image to match the text. So sometimes the image comes first, sometimes the text comes first, and then there's a bunch of apps or even Photoshop that I'll use to put it together. But just, you know, as little design as possible, because it should just be simple. Like one of my favorite ways to make a meme is just to like write a couple sentences in my notes app, and then
Mhm.
just take a screenshot.
Oh, yes, yes.
You know, just like sometimes just like the simplest way to express an idea is the best. You can't get too fancy.
I gotcha. So, if there's anyone's listening that is an inspired meme artist, what apps on your phone would you recommend?
So my favorite is called Letter Glow. And it's really simple. It's just what's good about it is there's layers. It's similar to Photoshop where there's layers.
Mhm.
So you can like add an image and then just add text on top of it and move the text around. So it's very simple, but that's probably the one that I use the most. Is called Letter Glow.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For us here that, don't have good Photoshop skills, sometimes Canva is a challenge for me. So I will check that out.
I've used Canva to make. I've used Canva before, not for memes, but that's Canva's a good one too.
Yeah. So what came first? Your first book that you published with Hay House, or your Instagram account, Words Are Vibrations?
The book came way earlier.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what made you create an Instagram account called Words Are Vibrations versus just your name as an author?
So my Instagram evolved from just my name when I first got an Instagram account years ago, a decade ago. And when I started working on Shit Your Ego Says, and right around the time I had a book deal and I was like really focusing on that book and that concept,
Mhm.
I changed my Instagram name to Shit Your Ego Says. So for years, like 5 years almost,
Mhm.
um, my Instagram name was Shit Your Ego Says. And you can go back on my account and like you can still see it. Like I wasn't making memes, but I was making like little pieces of writing and little illustrations, and you could see the seeds. They weren't memes quite yet, but you could see the where it was going.
Mhm.
And so I had that for a long time, and then the book came out, and it was last year during the pandemic when I changed it. And
Really? It was that soon? It was not that long ago
yeah,
then.
I changed it last year, in the early months of the pandemic. And that's because Shit Your Ego Says just felt constricting. Like, I mean, just first of all, just back to the idea of words are vibrations. Well, in that handle, I've got the word shit and I've got the word ego right there. So
Exactly.
you're kind
Yeah.
of like it's kind of like setting it's kind of setting a negative tone.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to only share things that my ego said. I think like when I wrote that book, I was probably struggling a lot more with my ego.
Mhm.
So I was writing content to help myself and others deal with the ego, right?
Yeah.
And
And the
I don't
struggle
want
of what was in your head
the
that we
struggle of
all
what was in
struggle
your
with.
head, exactly. And at that point I had kind of evolved past that particular struggle in my own life, in a way where that was not my main focus anymore. Like my ego was no longer a big problem that I was trying to solve.
Yeah.
So I just felt like I outgrew
Yeah, you
I
evolved,
outgrew the name.
which is fantastic.
And I changed it really randomly. I didn't give it much thought. I think I was just the name just popped into my head. Words are vibrations, and I just changed it. And like it was in hindsight, it was such a good decision because
Mhm.
like that name has become so popular and people really love it.
Mhm.
And I'm not even kidding that like zero thought went into it. And that's like the more I've written and been in like a creative, letting my subconscious mind lead is so important. Like as opposed to the shit your ego says, where you're like it's your alert problem solving mind, which is good for certain things, but when it comes to creativity and intuition, it's really the subconscious that will point you in the right direction,
Yeah, if you're willing to listen and trust it.
right?
Absolutely.
Yep. So I changed it without any thought about it, and I'm really just grateful that that download came to me, because it turned out to be definitely the right decision.
Yeah, it can carry you in so many different directions as you continue to evolve and, find new things that inspire you. It's they're beautiful words. And do you feel like your career has evolved in a more positive way and connected you to more people by just changing that handle to words or vibrations? Because it's so beautiful and lovely and seems like it can go in 50 million directions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not just the name, it's definitely the content changed quite a bit too, but
Yeah.
sometimes you need that name even to inspire the direction of your content. You know what I mean? Like, when I worked in advertising, after I was a graphic designer, I was a brand strategist, and I would actually help companies come up with names, either for their brands, for their products. I would help name companies. And so I definitely know the importance of the right brand name, and having the right name will help inspire the right content. So the name isn't everything. You need to have the content that backs it up, but the name will really frame the content in a certain way. So
Yeah, it's just like a
it
food
helped.
product. The name and packaging can draw you to it, but at the end of the day, it has to execute as in the quality, the taste.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You need to be catchy enough to get someone's attention, but once you have their attention, you need to deliver on the
Yeah,
goods, right?
absolutely. Yes. So tell me a little bit about your new book, How to Laugh in Ironic Amusement During Your Existential Crisis, which again, you seem to be really good with timing. So you're really doing a good job of listening to your higher self. Like that's such a beautiful title as we're coming into 2022. And I think more people than ever before are really working on themselves, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Um, so tell me a little bit about your book.
Yeah. And it goes back to, I was actually working on a follow-up to Shit Your Ego Says, which was, it's kind of a book about optimizing your career with mindfulness. And I was working on that when the pandemic happened, and the world was turned upside down, right? And a lot of people didn't even have jobs anymore or have
Mhm.
businesses anymore, and it just seemed like writing a book about how to be more mindful in your career, it just didn't seem to be the message that the world needed anymore, because people were dealing with much bigger problems, and the world was, you know, had gone insane overnight. And again, that's when the poetry and the memes started coming through. And I really just wanted to write poetry and make memes that captured the world that we were living in and the world that we're still living in.
Mhm.
And if you look at the art that's coming out this year, whether it's a new TV show, a new movie, a book, an album, I don't see a lot of artists trying to address head on the world that we're living in.
That's what I've noticed too.
And it's because
Especially, sorry to interrupt, especially with movies and TV shows.
yeah,
They're all showing a world that we lived in 2019.
yeah,
None of them are showing the
yeah,
current experience.
yeah. And I think it's hard for people to wrap their heads around, because of what angle do you take? Like, is this you better wear a mask kind of movie, or is it a movie about conspiracy theories? It's like, what angle do you take? It's hard for people to make sense of.
Well, I guess it depends what state you're filming in. So if we're in Florida, we're good to go. If
Yeah,
we're in
fair enough.
the city, it's going to look a little different.
Fair enough. But I think poetry and memes were the perfect vehicle, because you know you're not trying to take a side or make a point, you're trying to express the feeling of being alive in this time.
Yeah.
So that enabled me to capture the moment, which was really what I tried to do. And it was really fun, back to my interest in art and design, because the book is very visual. So it really gave me a chance to create a fully immersive book that was filled with, some of it is very, very deep spiritual poetry, but at the same time, it's very light and funny and humorous. So I was really trying to make something that was hopeful and humorous, but also at times very serious, and also, and deals with the trauma of the world that we live in, and do it all in a way that would also, you know, help you crack a smile and pull some delight into your day. So it's kind of a lot of things, and I was kind of really just trying to capture what how it felt to live in 2020 and 2021.
And I think you nailed it with the symbology that you chose. So, like with your graphic designing background that you chose and created a smiley face that's upside down, I think you kind of nailed it head on. Because even I think on everyone's best days, you still go out into the world and suddenly there'll be something thrown in your face that reminds you that everything's still a little upside down. So I thought that was really nicely done.
Yeah, the upside down smile could definitely be the symbol of our times, right? It's like even if you're happy and staying positive, it's still a little bit upside down, and we're just trying to kind of smile through the storm.
I know, absolutely. Well, hopefully well, whatever it is, it's what we signed up for. And it's just all an experience. And, I'm grateful for people like you reminding us to not take it all too seriously.
Yeah, I never thought I would find myself in the role of court jester, but I kind of have a bit, and I guess in a way I was kind of the class clown as a kid, but I do find myself trying to take take the seriousness out of everything that we're dealing with, and how can I just add some lightness, make fun of it,
Mhm.
just to help. I think I mean, I'm certainly not a comedian, but I love the role that comedians have in our society. They kind of are, it's like a pressure valve that releases pressure.
Oh,
And
well said.
when you can laugh at something, it just, even if it doesn't take away the pain, but it helps us live with the pain in a way that's just a better relationship. So I love comedians, and I guess memes can be a form of comedy. And yeah, just to be able to just crack a joke during an existential crisis, I think is I'm happy to give that gift to to people.
So, since you focus on creating memes and sharing quotes and poetry that is in this more spiritual galactic space, what is your spiritual practice like, or like what is really interesting you right now in the spiritual community? Like what are you diving in and learning about that's supporting the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, so like lots of people, I grew up in a, in the Christian tradition, and I don't follow that particular belief system anymore, but I will say that it did give me a strong understanding of just the concept of God from a young age, where I always felt like I had a personal relationship with God, whatever he, she, or it is, right? So I don't have that same understanding of God that like is traditionally understood in Christianity, but it did connect me to the belief of a higher power. So I've always had that. And then as I got older, I gravitated towards more of the Eastern traditions around spirituality, particularly Buddhism
Mhm.
and Taoism. The book, The Tao Te Ching, has been a great guide for me in my life. Probably because as a writer and as a poet, it's the most poetic kind of depiction of spirituality that I've ever read. It's very beautifully written, and you can read it a million times and always find something new. So Buddhism, Taoism. I studied Kundalini yoga and meditation, which was a big help, and that kind of came out of the Sikh tradition in India.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of crossover to Hinduism in kind of in that area in studying yoga as well. So I learned a lot about meditation and yoga, which are things I still practice. So that's kind of my foundation. You asked what I'm excited about now.
Mhm.
I think the idea of aliens is a pretty funny topic to explore and think about. And I guess, people talk about, certain traditions talk about angels, certain traditions talk about aliens. And, I can't help wonder if these are related, if not the same thing. I
Mhm.
think we have a certain concept of what an alien is, which is like a little green man, in a spaceship. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's just a different way of, when I engage with creativity, like I said, a lot of it is driven by my subconscious,
Mhm.
and things pop into my head. Now, things pop into our heads all the time, and we kind of take it for granted, and we don't really think a lot about where these ideas are actually coming from. When you,
Mhm.
when you think about it, it's a little bit strange for an idea to pop into your head out of nowhere. It's like, well, where did that come from? So when I'm writing, when I'm creating, I do feel to a degree that I'm quote unquote channeling something. Now, what am I channeling, and where is it coming from? Well, that's anyone's guess. There's different theories about that. Some people believe in spirit guides.
Mhm.
Some people believe in the higher self. Some people believe in God. Some people say that they're channeling so and so alien from the Pleiadians, right? And
Mhm.
I tend to think that these are all just metaphors and interpretations of the same unknowable truth. So you can call it an alien, you can call it an ancestor, you could call it a spirit guide, but I think it all comes down to our own intuition, and then you can kind of build a story around whatever that is. But I do like to believe that human beings are not the most advanced species in the universe. I think that it would be pretty silly. And I do like to believe that there are, people always say that there are, you know, bad people controlling the earth and like pulling the strings from behind the scenes. And I think that's certainly true to a degree. But I like to believe that there are also benevolent beings of some sort who are also working behind the scenes for our behalf. So I think that, you can call them angels and demons. You could call them good aliens and bad aliens, but I definitely think that we are not alone in the universe, and there are, you know I don't even call them extraterrestrial, because that kind of assumes like they're on a different planet. I tend to think that when we talk about aliens, quote unquote, I tend to believe that they're more interdimensional than they are
Mhm.
extraterrestrial. So I do believe that there are interdimensional influences that are affecting um, the state of things here on Earth. The as crazy as the world is now, and I'm not the first person to suggest this, but I think it's a ripple effect from you know a bit of a galactic war that's taking place on God knows what dimension
Mhm.
of reality, and we're kind of caught up in it. So that's kind of what I've been, thinking about a lot lately. And
Yeah.
and that's one thing that does give me hope, because I do think that we are not entirely alone in the universe. And I think that we have some, the light outweighs the dark on the grand universal scale. And and that definitely gives me hope about, you know, the state of the world today.
Yeah, there's light and dark everywhere, and it's always trying to find balance, just as we are always trying to find balance. And, there's lots of theories about what dimension we are all experiencing right now, or what we're moving into. So I definitely understand your different perspectives. I've been there and down those rabbit holes, and you know it's something that you can explore your whole life. Who knows if we will ever know while we're here in these physical bodies, um but it's definitely fun to explore and then find people that you feel comfortable with to have these conversations about, because it's just the greater conversation and concept of who we are and why we're here, just taken to another level.
Totally. I just think it's so important to keep an open mind
Yeah,
and not to
absolutely.
be too dogmatic about your beliefs, because really there's so much we don't know. There's so much. When you look at the spectrum of electromagnetic light, the portion that's visible is a very, very small amount.
Hmm.
And just like the same with sound, like there are sounds that are the pitch is far too high for us to hear, or far too low for us to hear. Like the five senses attune us to a very narrow, specific reality.
And who
And
knows if those five senses are really true? We
right,
can have so many more senses
right.
that we haven't named and that we aren't even picking up, that we're actually processing and using every day.
Totally. And anyone who's ever done psychedelics can tell you that, it's a little bit strange that one little cup of ayahuasca or one little mushroom can completely alter your perception of reality. Um, and those that 5 sense perception unravels quite quickly under the right conditions, right? So it for me, it's just a bad bet to put all of my intellectual money on the idea that what we see is all there is.
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a naive belief system. That doesn't mean I, in any way, shape, or form, claim to know what else there is out there. But I just think and if you believe too strongly in something like that, you're probably wrong in my estimation. But it's just the first step is just admitting what we don't know, and admitting that the world and the universe is so much more vast than we can even imagine, and
Hmm.
just holding space for that. Because if we don't hold space for that and hold that possibility in our imagination, we'll never get to a chance of exploring it and figuring it out, because we need to believe it and hold, and like you need to admit what you don't know in order to learn more.
Absolutely. And the only way you can learn more is if you're able to have a conversation with someone without like standing in your judgment and your belief system, and hearing out what they've learned along the way versus what you've learned along the way, and how that can create a bigger picture.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we're really lucky that I feel like we're moving into that space where you can have conversations like this, and you can have a podcast called Homesick Alien Club, and people can understand what that really means, and realize that they found another brother or sister that is having a very similar experience, and just wants to learn more and wants to figure out why they can't just find anything that feels like home here on this planet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I I think people are more and more feeling a little bit not at home in, it's not even on the earth, but it's in the artificial society that we've created. The earth is a great place to be, but being stuck in a society that doesn't value, humanity, empathy, compassion,
Yeah.
that's where it's hard.
Well, you have a
So
great meme that says, like it represents a person who's looking to like move off the grid and live in the forest, but at the same time, they're checking Instagram for the 5,000th time today. You know, it's a great
yes,
representation of how so many people feel. They're looking for home. They want to break away from um, the strict confines of modern society, but they're still looking to use social media to find people to connect with.
that would be the ideal, right? Living in a jungle commune, but still having great Wi-Fi.
But you're able to turn it off at night so it doesn't affect your sleep.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all in balance, and we're constantly attuning to what that balance is for us.
Yes.
So if if you were to leave our listeners with a little healthy tip or something that they can consider in adding to their life that can improve their well-being, what do you think that would be?
So, we've been talking a lot about kind of far out concepts, and
Mm-hmm.
even um, I think that there's a tendency to, in the spiritual kind of world right now, to want to transcend the matrix and escape, you know, try to ascend into 5D and
Mm-hmm.
transcend the matrix and whatnot. And it's trying to kind of like elevate. And it's all that kind of top chakra kind of stuff. And I think that I wrote something recently that was along the lines of, the highest calling requires the deepest grounding.
Mm.
So while people are going through these changes and evolving as people and as souls, I think it's really important to stay grounded and to stay connected to the body. And so just doing things that bring you back to your body, whether that's ecstatic dance or breath work or meditation, but um not getting too lost in the clouds, but actually being more rooted in the body, I think is really important for spiritual development.
I agree. I mean, you're here now, so why not be present?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I find it harder and harder to hang out with friends who are really looking to escape this reality and this life and kind of just want to leave and let it all be over. I'm looking for people that just want to be here now and enjoy life the most that they can each and every day and just figure out the way to have the best time ever, despite all the rules and restrictions we may see or not see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here now, so let me be in this body and have a freaking blast.
Yeah, and the human body is a blessing, right? Like they say that there's spirits that are just dying to get into a human body because we can do so we can do so much.
Yeah.
We have posable thumbs, um you
Some people do, some people actually don't.
is that right?
So in my family, there's an issue in my family that sometimes the women are born without a bone, and so the thumb stays up like a fifth finger.
Wow.
And they think it comes from Spain, but they aren't sure. And the women pass it down through women. So the sons can't get it, only the women can get it. And you don't get a traditional thumb. You have a thumb that's stuck up like this.
I had no idea.
I know you're
I'm
not
sorry to hear that, but I
this
mean,
conversation to go this way.
even 5 fingers, I mean, that's still pretty, that's more than a ghost can do, right? Like
Yes,
there's
yes.
still a lot we can manifest into the physical world through our bodies. And I think that's pretty special.
It did affect the way my grandmother held her glass of wine or a cup of coffee, but she survived.
I suppose she could never be a professional basketball player because of that, though,
No,
unfortunately.
no, she chose to be a scientist over a professional athlete.
Well, not a bad decision.
But it did very much help my aunt be a swimmer and be on the junior Olympic swim team, because you can imagine if your hands are like this
It's
instead
like a
of like
web.
this,
It's like having a web or something.
you can move
Webbed
that
feet.
water a little faster.
See, it can be every you know, everything is a blessing when you find the right perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, nobody expected that turn today. So, there's lots of interesting genetic defects out there that we get to celebrate.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree.
Well, James, where can people learn more about you and your books? Can you tell us the best places for people to find you?
Yeah, for the most part, Instagram. Just go to Words Are Vibrations, one word, and go to the link in my bio, and you can order my merch, buy my book, find my podcast, all that good stuff.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Whitney. This was really fun.
All right. Well, have a good one and take care.
You too.
All right. Bye.